Ladies and gentlemen, with my closing remarks, the 10th ISAS Annual International Conference on Politics and Economics of Land in South Asia will come to an official end. The conference over, the authors and guests from far and near will make their way home, and the home team will get busy in dismantling this platform on which I'm standing, getting the output into print, and onto preparing the next conference. A think tank has no seasons. I could paraphrase the BBC jingle for you. The BBC says, news never ends. In a think tank, conferencing never ends. So our work will go on. What I want to do now is to tell you a few things as to why our unofficial conversation on land will go on. You see, every day, our limited stock of land is eaten up by roads, buildings, factories, golf clubs, and other hungry consumers of this very limited stock of usable land. To cope with this pressure, one can do many things. One can build up and down, like in Singapore, or build little islands in the South China Sea, like our gigantic neighbor to the east, or have fantasies, like in science fiction or architecture, with apologies to the last panel. That land is not a problem. The problem is design or new technology to colonize the space, build on the moon or wherever. I'm only a political scientist, and that too, a hard-nosed one, as I can see. The quadrangular relationship of land, society, economy in this state is likely to be conflictual and continuous. That would be the state of the world, and since ISAS very modestly thinks of itself as a knowledge hub for the rest of the world, we will stay on with land as a part of our work plan. So, watch this space for new things to come. As I have already indicated, this conference is not end of anything, but the beginning of something new. But still, it is ending now. So let me say a few things about the conference that we have had. Many of you are experienced conference organizers and conference goers. You'd probably know that each conference has its life cycle, and like human beings, they develop personalities of their own. For example, when we were organizing this conference, we had not reckoned with the toll that the Bihar elections will take on the ISAS conference. We lost many of our key players, but then others came, and fortuitously, quite serendipitously for us, the organizers, the lineup of speakers led to a synergy and contiguity we had not quite expected when we got started. I mean, the choice of land itself was a risky choice because unlike issues like nuclear war, terrorism, global warming, American warships on the South China Sea, they are sensational. Land is boring, is humdrum, and I was not sure that we would really attract attention. But as you have noticed, like this famous quote from A Passage to India, in India, nothing is what it appears to be. The mere asking of a question makes it disappear and reappear as part of a larger question. I think many of us started with land, and then we are thinking about ourselves. As Sanjoy said yesterday, quoting from Mamata Banerjee, land is not just land, it's ma, mati, manush. It gets into eternity. So the land conference brought in a lot, and I was very, very pleased to notice that very soon people are talking to one another regardless of their disciplinary points of departure. That has been for me the biggest takeaway, but there have been others. So let me sum up what we have heard in terms of 3 questions. Why we chose land in the first place, what significance the main findings have for policy and the political economy of land, what do we at ISAS intend to do with the knowledge gained. The last point is easily answered. Singapore does not leave this particular question to speculation. There is such a thing as academic audit, and every Singapore dollar that goes into academic activities must be accounted for. So I've got my KPI, key performance indicator, a new discovery for me after 20 long years in Heidelberg, where I was as a professor never asked this question. So the key research, key results achieved will be put on the net fairly quickly. We'll have a general paper showcasing the findings, and I've had a good conversation with the authors during lunch. We'll have a series of short and long publications. Will there be a book? I'm not taking any bets on that question. There is room for a book that would talk about our land in terms of their theories. But that one will take a little time, and my life in the think tank does not allow me the kind of space I need to conceptualize it right away. But maybe from among the group of authors, a new leadership would emerge. I'll wait to see 5 to 6 good contiguous papers, and then we'll go towards that. But output there will be. But why land in the first place? ISAS annual conferences reflect the schizophrenic identity of ISAS as a research institute. We call ourselves a research institute. We're not quite a research institute in the sense that you have a problem, some resources, and lock yourself into just that and nothing else, and wait and come up with something new and fresh. As research goes, we are more like Singapore of research institutes. We identify core questions, then look all over the world to see who is doing what, bring a group together, and let's put it this way, appropriate their findings, rebrand them, and send them off. That's our niche in the value chain. That's what we do. And we do it that way because we are, on the one hand, financed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Trade and Industry and the Singapore Incorporated. Their expectation is that we'll have policy intelligence to make Singapore work. I mean, for friends who have come from outside, this is a discovery I made. This small barren island, which does not even have enough water, has to sustain the lifestyle that you see. And this is possible because Singapore has discovered the knowledge economy. We can look all over the world and make resource out of it. And that is the policy output. And we have to do it in such a way because we are a part of a research university ranked 12, not in the Asian ranking, but global ranking of universities. And my colleague Choi from our global relations will attest to it. We link up with the best in the world, like Berkeley and Cambridge most recently. As ISAS, we have to be worthy of that title. And that we can do if and only if we look into the policies that we generate and make theory pass the challenge of being policy relevant and make policy talk to one another through something meta-policy-like, which is theory. So we are hoping that our conference on land will discover something we can send back to the larger world of the political economy of development as land is concerned. That was the problem of my generation of students. I belong to the first post-war generation, a little bit like the Midnight Children generation. We were growing up in Nehru's India, and we were hoping to draw on the knowledge that was handed over to us and apply that to the modernization of our transitional society. Translate that to land, we thought there would be the stages of growth where land will become part of the modern economy. So peasants will become farmers, subjects will become citizens, and South Asia will become a part of the modern world, international political economy, and so on. So it was, as Maulanovic would put it, pretty much an engineering exercise, applying theories handed down to us to the world in which we were ensconced. So, W. Rustow, then Barrington Moore, a number of others were our main textbooks. What do we read there? We read there that we have to apply the models and methods derived from modern social sciences to a world which was not modern but modernizing. Translate that to land. The social sciences were born that we applied in a world where the land problem was actually already solved. The ownership of large tracts of land by large groups of people was already settled in the Treaty of Westphalia. Those are nations and their territories in which the state was ensconced. Within those boxes, there were individual boxes called private property. And those private properties drew on great theories of social contract. Nature is free. Man puts boundary on a little part of it and transforms that in terms of his own toil. That becomes property as sacred and inviolable as his self. So that property, that nation state, are the fixed parameters of many of the theories that came to us. Now let's get to Nehru's India. Nehru has become prime minister, the Brits have gone home. And Nehru is being told, and Nehru's colleagues all over South Asia, now you people become modern. You build yourselves a modern economy, a modern society, modern technology, and do all of that democratically. As simple as that. The problem there is democracy did not follow modernization in the world where these theories were born. Democracy was the result of very bloody, violent revolutions. Industrial revolution, great religious revolutions, political revolutions, those were large, bloody activities. And the survivors went on to become citizens, property owners, and so on. Little example, go back to Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities. Land is being expropriated by large landowners. These enclosure movements are pushing out people either to their death or across the seas or to the cities. 18-hour days, man, woman, child, your hand got chopped off. Don't ask for compensation, move over, the next person will take your job. You're not talking about the CNN. You're talking about a brutal world. And there is no one to stand by the defenseless. Of course, there'll be the Robin Hoods. There'll be machine breaking. There'll be food riots. But those are the swan songs of the defeated. The survivors will go on to become modern, industrial, and they will colonize the rest of the world. So the handed over knowledge brings a package of tools which are part of somebody else's life, somebody else's history. We have had to apply them. And the result that you have seen over the 2 days will show that it does not always fit. That nice, neat theories, when put into practice, disappear and reappear in terms of larger problems. Those, ladies and gentlemen, were very much on my mind when I came up with the idea of having land as the core issue of our annual conference, and the specific questions I had as points of departure were: what problems does the state in South Asia face when it comes to land reforms and land acquisition? How does politics affect structural transformation of land rights? How do land reform and land acquisition affect the prospects of industrialization and economic growth in South Asia? Which regional and state level variations does one notice on the issue of land reform and land acquisition? How to combine growth and justice to generate an efficient land policy in the South Asian context? That was the modest set of questions. Little would I have expected the exciting conversation that started almost as soon as we took off. On the program you have seen, again, this is Singapore. We had provided for session observers, and my diligent colleagues have brought me a number of reports on the conversation that took place. What I've been trying to do during the very last session was to pull together some of these ideas into a few key points rather than reading them out to you, because you will see them anyway on the net fairly soon. I'll just have a few key points, which were to start. As I said, the ISAS annual conference has two functions: to showcase us in Singapore for the notice of Singapore Incorporated and the ministries, and also an academic stretch. So first, the political stretch. In the two keynote addresses, I was delighted to find that the minister, the parliamentarian, and the academic were coming to a convergence. And the convergence was on the need of political will to bring two contradictions together: growth and justice, justice and growth. Of course, the keynote doesn't ask, isn't there a little of a chicken and egg problem? Which comes first? Which is where our three academic sessions focused on. They were on acquisition, and that's where I keep going back to Sanjoy. The key issue that arose was not just acquisition, but what is the fight really about? And there were a number of very, very interesting papers which led to the issue of regulation. If acquisition has to be done, how is it to be regulated so that there can be both growth and justice, so that there can be stability, so that there can be some form of generalization from micro examples? We quickly saw that Tamil Nadu and Chhattisgarh don't quite belong together, that Amaravati might want to become Singapore. It's not as simple as that. I wish we had had a paper on Amaravati itself. Then we would have seen that land is not really about economics. It's about solidarity. It's about the Kammas, who are many of whom are TDP supporters, saying, we will show them that we can do it too. that a chief minister who loses his prized possession of Hyderabad and Hyderabad says, I will do it again, and I'll get help from Singapore. Is it economics or political will or ethnicity? I think these need to be deconstructed further, which is where the third level of this conference was important, which is comparison. How do we generalize from specific foundation, specific points, and how does the state become also a variable, and why the state is not the state, not the state? I mean, we can talk about South Asia as if it did not matter. But you have heard today that South Asian states are very different from one another. And the state plays a crucial role. And unpack the state, you'd find civil-military relations, ethnic basis, and deep memory. All these things emerge all over again. And we ask ourselves, can we generalize, or can we simply agree that land policy has to be a patchwork quilt? As my friend reminds us, Joto Mot Tato Pot. But if that is the case, will provincial competition, provincial Darwinism, dog eat dog, survival of the fittest, be the only rule? If that is the case, can the macro state still hold together? What will happen to the national market? Can there be a national policy at all? Those then were the various issues that arose from the academic discussions until we came to the business round, where I got the feeling we are starting all over again. The effortless ease with which Mr. Ravi Parthasarathi talked to us about the land market made me ask, made me think, what would they think about this in Dantewada or in problematic areas where land is not just an asset, land is life, land is my ancestors, which one will hang on to, even if it is untenable, even if it gives nothing, but still as some fixed anchor to some specific part of the world, so that I can, like a kite, fly, float freely all over the world. Until that issue has been solved, for me, many of the conversations about financing large-scale land projects, building, will remain, at least for the actor out there, a little speculative. As you can see, I've already made a list of unresolved issues that emerged from this conference. Most of them can be summed up in terms of land policy, the issues that I'm talking about, and land theory. That what kind of general equilibrium solution, and general equilibrium solution is a solution to which one comes back when one has looked at individual cases. The general equilibrium that we had seen in the early work of Professor Pranabardhan was a kind of low-level equilibrium trap, that India will be a democracy but will get bogged down into paralysis because of the contradictions within the class structure of the state. Is there a new equilibrium now that land will become capital and saleable asset, that South Asian economies will become part of the global political economy, or the whole idea of solving the land problem by building will take root? Or is this still only a question, and have we seen enough of the theory to tell those who gave us our original points of departure that we have found something new? Once again, those are things we'll be looking at in the future as we start harvesting this very rich crop that has emerged from this conference. Now, to conclude, a few words of thanks. Most of all, I am grateful in a very, very personal way to my institute. I had only just arrived in Singapore, and I was told to come up with an idea. And land is an idea because I used to teach this area. I thought, well, in Heidelberg in Germany, if you want to do a conference, you spend a couple of months doing some research, write a proposal, send it to a funding council, which takes 6 months to come up with an answer. If it at all accepts your idea, it wants some revisions, then you get some funds, put together a team. In a couple of years, you can have a conference. This is Singapore. You never get a couple of years to do anything. The conference was in a few months. So I said, how shall we go about it? That very day, a man had jumped to his death in Delhi. A farmer had committed suicide, so the body is hanging, and underneath is a celebration by the Aam Aadmi Party of Delhi of their various successes, and you're looking up and looking down, and I asked myself, what do I get out of it? This farmer's suicide is a signal that we ought to be talking about land. It goes entirely to the credit of our chairman and my research community of ISAS. They accepted this idea and got on with it. And eventually, when I saw the conference poster designed by a well-known design company called Johnson & Johnson, well, those who know, it is our Johnson Paul. What you find there is a stylized image of that first vision of a farmer's suicide. And this idea struck root. I'm very, very grateful, dear colleagues, that you gave this a chance. And very quickly, I transformed land then to one of the core parameters of our work plan. Again, for that, I'm very grateful. Now, research, a think tank has to have a core plan, and in Singapore, people go by numbers, like every Singaporean should know how to count from 1 to 4. One wife, 2 kids, 3 rooms, 4 wheels. I found my 1, 2, 3, that's 3 Ds, democracy, diplomacy, and development. That's the core of our research agenda, and I wanted to make land connect to each of these 3. Land acquisition is a core of democratization. Land conflict becomes the problem of insecure boundaries of South Asia. The most recent one is the land corridor understanding between Bangladesh and India. And if this is resolved peacefully, one can think of going from here to there, poverty to plenty, subject to citizenship, feudalism to modernity, and think of the world as a level playing field. That's development. So for that core plan, core program, land has now become a key issue. I'm very grateful to my colleagues that they have accepted this idea, and the generous support of many has made this possible for ISAS to take it further. I must, first of all, thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade and Industry for their support. I would like to thank Minister Heng Swee Keat of Singapore, member of the Indian Parliament, our representative from Kendrapada, Mr. Bijan Panda, and Professor Pranab Bhatten from the University of California, Berkeley, and our authors who have come from the 4 corners of the world to join us despite their busy schedules, and who have promised within a week to send me a paragraph summarizing their findings so that I can put it onto the net. Thank you in advance. Securing the presence of all these distinguished guests and authors at our conference would not have been possible without the untiring and generous support of our chairman, Ambassador Gopinath Pillai. For this, like for much else, we are beholden to him. In the same vein, I would like to thank the members of the board of ISAS, many of whom actually attended this conference and the networking dinner, for their support of this event and the full spectrum of academic activities of ISAS. As fellow academics from outside my ISAS family, I would like to thank Professor Deng Yongheng, Director of the Real Estate Studies of the NUS, Associate Professors Ganesh Kudesia and Rahul Mukherjee of the South Asia Studies Program, and Assistant Professor Manjusha Nair from the Department of Sociology, currently our writer in residence at ISAS, for your very generous contributions. Vital though it is, in good South Asian form, on the list of thank-giving, my family must come towards the end. I would like to acknowledge my gratitude to the creative and committed research community of ISAS and the small band of dedicated administrators under the leadership of Mr. Johnson Paul, Senior Associate Director of ISAS, for making this a successful event. And since no international academic conference is complete without the participation of a major publisher, I would like to thank Ms. Dorothea Schefter of Rutledge, with whom I run the Rutledge Advances in South Asian Studies, for securing the presence of Rutledge at this conference and for their financial participation. I still have two more groups of people to acknowledge. I would like to thank, among others, the Singapore community for being here and for standing by us, and to the two ministries who support us for requiring of us to be an independent think tank. I've been told again and again that Singapore, small island, must have think tanks on South Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia, Asia Research Institute, and so on, because it is important for Singapore to stay in touch with the world. And that would be possible if and only if the think tank thinks of itself as an independent body, and within this laboratory to be a little bit politically searching and politically incorrect. I make this point here because this is exactly what I've been told when I went to submit my work plan to the ministries. I was amazed by their own sense of adventure and sagacity. And our profile as a think tank, we take very, very seriously. Finally, there can be no successful conference without the enthusiastic support of a receptive, participating audience. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying on, and thank you for your attention. I'll now invite my ISAS family to join me to thank you for your participation.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This brings us to the end of the 10th ISAS International Conference. We thank you for your presence and active participation in the proceedings. It has been an honor to be hosting all of you here today, and we wish you a wonderful weekend ahead. Thank you.